Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being part of our panel and joining us for this interesting topic. Please allow me to welcome my guest. Ladies first, Ms. Elyza Falzon, Vice President, Hilton Worldwide, Architecture, Design and Construction. Mr. Waleed Abualnadi, Commercial Director, Saudi Icon Company. Mr. Nicola Clark, Program Director, Compass Project Consulting. Mr. Michael Thorley, Project Director, DAR Engineering. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, my guest. Allow me to provide a small introduction about myself. I am Hiba Araji, architect by background, hotelier by passion. I come with 18 years of experience in architecture, design, and construction in the Middle East, and I'll be the moderator of the panel. Thank you for joining us. The sustainability is a trend that came to last. It's something that we are all looking forward, the evolving that will come around it. A topic that will be really interesting to have it from aspiring guests around me. Assist me in welcoming my guest, Mr. Michael. I'll leave you to give us a few insights about yourself and Compass and the sustainability approach that you're taking.
Thank you, Hiba. Firstly, can I say how delighted I am to be here today. I think it's important that all of us understand the role that we play in sustainability. And I'm fortunate enough to work in a company with Compass that recognises that importance, and not as a need to do, it's a must do. Sustainability is absolutely critical for everything we have to do, not just today, but for the future as well. We've probably, as an industry, let the world down as a particular industry, in that we've not advanced as quickly as we could have done. And I think we will all play our parts as we look at that. And in my role as Programme Director for the company, I get involved in a diverse range of projects here within the Kingdom. And I've spent 5 years here so far, and I've loved every minute of it. It's a real pleasure to be working in a country that is in many ways leading the world in terms of what can be achieved. And I'm lucky enough, I guess, and old enough in some ways, that I remember a phrase that I was taught many years ago, and that is, necessity is the mother of invention. And the challenges that we have, particularly in the hospitality sector, to actually achieve the requirements of the Kingdom over the next 6 years will require us to change, to adapt, to come up with new methods and new approaches to delivering things. So, like I said, great to be here today, and I look forward to having a wider conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nick. Waleed, it's such a pleasure to see you today, being very active, Saudi Icon taking so much involvement and insights in FHS. Would you share with us, knowing that you're Commercial Director for Saudi Icon, can you please share some further insights?
Assalamu alaikum. Of course, it's a pleasure to be here. At Saudi Icon, sustainability is the trend. It's a very big part of what we're trying to do in every single project and endeavor. Just about me a little bit, I did do a renewable energy master's with a focus on renewable energy and how it should be involved or integrated in the Saudi Arabian markets. We also, at Saudi Icon, I got my LEED ID+C, the LEED accredited professional degree. And this is what we do to a lot of our senior members and management members, just to drive this culture throughout the company construction process, even. So I think that's a very short introduction. We're very glad to be here.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you so much. Elyza, thank you to have you on board, and the introduction of yourself being Vice President of Hilton in Architecture, Design and Construction, and knowing that how vocal you are in leadership and in sustainability. Please, stage is yours.
Thank you, Hiba. Good morning. It is such a pleasure to be back at Future Hospitality Summit in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, so thank you very much for having us again. My name is Elyza Falzon. I lead the architecture, design and construction team at Hilton. I have the pleasure of working alongside a very talented team, richly diverse and multidisciplinary, including project directors, architects, interior designers and engineers. And together we support our owners with the design, construction and the successful opening of the hotels, resorts and residences across the Middle East and Africa. Hiba, I think when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Saudi's ambitious plans, 320,000 keys. And I mentioned that Saudi is extremely important for Hilton. Yes. We had at the time a pipeline of, I think, 67 hotels in the kingdom alone. That is the largest pipeline for Hilton across the Europe, Middle East and Africa, and it is our third largest pipeline globally. That is quite a statement for us to make. I'm very pleased to share that since then our pipeline has increased, and I'd like to congratulate my colleagues, Carlos and Amir and the entire team who yesterday announced the signing of 3 fantastic properties in Ruwal Medina. And of course, I'd like to thank our owners for picking our brands, the Conrad, the Doubletree and the Hilton Garden Inn. We're delighted to work with them and to continue our journey in the kingdom.
That's interesting and inspiring. Thank you. Michael Thorley, project director in Dar Engineering and seconded to Expro, the Expenditure and Project Efficiency in Authority in the Kingdom. Glad to have you with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much to the other panelists and the ability to come here and, like you've mentioned, to represent Dar, a local Saudi company, and I'm an Australian architect by background, but chartered over in Australia and registered in Doha as well. And we work here primarily on large-scale projects, focusing on our commitment to the Saudi objectives, to Vision 2030, and to the initiatives that are a part of that. It's a real pleasure to be here. It is unquestionably the biggest opportunity, I think, in the world today, and possibly even in our lifetimes. And so it's a delight to be here with the panelists and to talk about the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Allow me to start our topic on sustainability and the impact that sustainability construction have on the market in Saudi. You know, with talking about the pipeline, the mega projects coming for in the kingdom, we're talking about 12 up to 15 mega projects going on. There's a big vision behind it, the KSA Vision 2030. Expo is as well in the pipeline. What would you outline as a key sustainable trend shaping the construction industry? And would those trends align with the unique demands of Saudi market? Would Saudi Icon touch base on that?
Of course. So at Saudi Icon, we're uniquely positioned in the market. We've seen NEOM, as the CEO, Mr. Abdullah Azhar, just mentioned. We're working on Sindala Island. We're also working on the main island, building a couple of hotels for NEOM themselves. We're also working with the Red Sea and soon in Amala. So we've seen these mega projects from a very early stage, and the trend essentially is a very heavy focus on sustainability and environmental consciousness during construction. As a contractor, this is like a puzzle that you have to consider from the very early stages. It's a new initiative in Saudi Arabia. We're used to the normal methods of construction. We're used to the just finish the project on time. And now it's finished the project clean, environmentally friendly, using certain materials and on time. However, with the necessary experience that we're bringing on board, we are, again, we're solving this puzzle. Yeah, like, I guess. So.
Delightful, insightful from you, thank you. From, you know, Saudi, I can touch it base as it as contractor. When it's on site, what's the construction process that takes? If we come from the beginning, from a design stage, how, you know, in Saudi would like to make a bold statement, landmark projects. We make a it has to stay, it has to make a slogan for the projects. What do you believe from early stages, from design point of view, how we can balance the ambition of Saudi making bold statement and aesthetically a landmark project over the kingdom, but as well making sure that we make a statement and a commitment to sustainability?
Okay, thank you. I think from a project management perspective, we have to look at all the projects that we get involved with, and within the kingdom we've got a range of giga projects right the way down to much smaller new builds. And the things that I see that really contribute very well to sustainability that is driven from within the kingdom, and that's the local content. It is really important that, for me as an individual working here, that we recognise that we're here, for most of us, for a period of time. Life will go on after we've gone back home. We have to have a legacy and pass our knowledge and understanding to the actual people of the kingdom. We've got to work with them now. We have to work to make sure that we are using the local materials where we can, and local content plays a big part in that. And I think over time we will see that increasing. And I also believe that technology also plays a part in making sure that we end up with a sustainable product. And the kingdom is advancing technology in a whole variety of ways. And I do see us, particularly in our industry, using things like giant 3D printers. And when I say giant, I mean factory-sized 3D printers, so that we actually move away from necessarily building everything in situ on site. We will move more as well, I think, to modularization. And we see that already in the kingdom, where we're bringing in modules from different parts of the world. But as we progress and as we become more confident and competent and have the local content here within kingdom, all those modules that we require will be built here. So I think that, one, there's a lot that's already happened. There's a lot still to come. And the other factor in all of this is people. It's really important that over time that we train people so that it doesn't need as many people from overseas to support all of the industry that is here. We have got some fantastic skills, and we are seeing coming out of universities those skills being widened and developed, particularly to meet the local requirements of the marketplace. We've moved away from just oil and gas, although that's still really important to the kingdom. Hospitality is an area that the kingdom sees as a massive growth, to diversify and recognise that eventually fossil fuels will be required less, I guess. And so the training is now starting for those future generations, and I would encourage all of those future generations and the people coming into colleges now to start thinking about what role can they play in their future in terms of the construction industry, not necessarily in the building, but actually in the management, the maintenance, and even the servicing of it. There are just so many roles, and I'm sure my colleagues will add further flavour to this. But we can't just do what we do today. We've got to look to what's required tomorrow. And like I said, people are important, the local content is important, and the use of technology. And I think those are the three things that I would focus on.
Thank you. So we touched base from sustainability, from how we can start with from the design, having it on site. As an end user, when we are in hospitality, we can reflect on the impact. We see if it's coming, how people are adapting to it. On the data collected from the hotels, we can see, is it really there? We are seeing the difference. So what could be the primary benefits of incorporating the sustainability practices in construction and hospitality projects?
That's a great question, but I'm going to tweak it a little bit.
Please.
I'd like to look at that from two perspectives: ownership and the guest. We do realize that Hilton has been thinking and acting upon sustainability for years, over close to 2 decades. We have a global ESG platform called Travel with Purpose, and its objective is to promote responsible travel and tourism globally. So we're very passionate. We believe that sustainability is everybody's responsibility, and that has to be the foundation of everything we do. From an owner perspective, we're also very aware that more often than not, sustainable design practices come at a cost. And we have to be respectful of the millions of dollars our owners are investing into these developments. How AD&C, Hilton's architecture, design and construction team can help is by providing the years of experience and expertise we have, not only from the design standpoint, but from operating 7,000 plus hotels globally. So whilst we work with the consultants to try to guide owners and allow them to make more informed decisions as to why they should invest more in the CapEx, what we can do is provide owners with a little bit more insight on the ROI for those particular investments, helping them understand why it would be to their benefit to invest more at a capital spend, and how that would make the hotel more efficient to operate, lower utility bills, even though in a market blessed with oil and fossil fuels, perhaps less important, but still should be still quite appealing for an ownership group. And I also like to think that, we've seen it in mature markets across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Those hotels which are designed and built, thinking about the future, future-proofing the design, thinking about how efficient they can be, those assets come at a premium. And again, from an owner's perspective, that should be appealing enough for them to understand why they may want to invest more at a capital spend. From a guest perspective, we collect a lot of data across regions, across the globe, and our guests are telling us clearly they want to do away with the greenwashing that we've seen for years and years. They really want brands who are passionate, who have purpose, and who live sustainability through and through. So, I don't know how many attended the panel earlier. Mr. Abdul Rahman from Danko explained it so eloquently. Sustainability is about developing also the communities, and we have the pleasure of working with Danko on 3 fantastic properties in Ahsa, 1 LXR and 2 Curos, and we are leveraging the rich heritage and the culture that already exists there to pull it into the designs of our properties and to allow guests to experience that in a very authentic way. And that, I think that is the key, to allow the guests to feel the sense of space, sense of place first, and then in our case, the brand second, so the Elyza or the Curio brands. So, there's the commercial rationale, which I would like to think is appealing to the owner as to why they could invest more. There's the emotional rationale from the guest perspective, allowing them to connect with the property and to come back, which ultimately does kind of tie into the commercial rationale as well.
Very insightful, thank you. Mr. Michael, being in Expro, so the project efficiency and the expenditures, and we're touching a bit about commercially viable, how we can prove to our investors the importance of applying sustainable practices. We were saying that in Saudi, it's still primitive, the sustainable regulations. So how do you see as, it's evolving to have a regulatory framework to support the sustainability practice? And what are the incentives provided for the developers and the investors to take this forward?
It's an interesting question. And thank you for that. There's a lot of different reasons to go around these type of conversations around sustainability. And from a governmental or even studio or consultancy or ownership point of view, there are a lot of incentives around benefits, maybe even getting preferential bank loans, interest from users that I would rather stay at a hotel or attend a development that is a higher sustainability development than another. But at the same time, I think it's really important to remember that we're talking about the place where we live. The main objective of sustainability is to make sure that we do the best with the planet that we're on. And we, as a part of the construction and design industry, we do contribute, significantly to that. We do create places where people live and work. At the same time, we do have an impact on the urban environment where people go out, they spend time with their families. Just In a personal point of view, I know Dar, we do a lot of work with the educational sector, with the hospital sector, and things like this. These are all environments where people live their lives. And so, yes, there are absolutely frameworks in place. There are sustainability objectives from the government point of view. And yes, there are some, let's call it preferences or priorities to people that engage with local content, use local materials, local design consultants as well, and local owners. But at the same time, I think it's important for us to all remember that we're just here trying to improve the quality of life for everybody that's here. And the construction industry holds a place in that dialogue, and we want to continue and improve and maintain that as we go forward.
Thank you. Interesting. It's engaging the community. It's creating making the connection between what we're building for later with whatever is done in the recent days. Very insightful. Thank you. We touched a bit about the heritage, the culture. Saudi is making the evolving trend, bringing the past into the future, connecting it to, bringing it to the present, connecting it to the future. So, sustainability often involves global concepts and technologies. How Saudi is integrating this in the construction project, but as well maintaining the cultural identity and the heritage in the architecture of the region. Mr. Nick, if you could like.
That's a really interesting question, thank you. I guess I'm lucky enough that I've been involved in my time in the Kingdom with projects both in the east of the country over near Kobar and also in Alula. And what comes across very clearly from both of those areas is the importance of heritage. And I know my colleague spoke about the hotels in Al-Hassa, where heritage is super important. And it's actually a fundamental part of the environment in which everybody lives and works there. And so it'll be interesting to see how those 3 new hotels actually fit into that environment. And certainly in one of the projects I've been looking at on the East Coast, we have a 900-year-old fort that is of significant historical importance to the Kingdom. And that becomes a central focal point in the whole development because it is important not just for the development itself, but for the future generations, that they don't lose sight of their history. And the client is absolutely driven to make sure that the heritage that we have, not only is it retained within the development, it's actually restored appropriately and sympathetically, so that it reflects the use in which it was first built. And so as part of that overall development planning that's being carried out, the architects that we're involved in, the designers that we're working with, are making sure that the whole development flows and picks up that important heritage piece. So that the fort has walkways through to it so people can actually see it, so they can actually feel it, explore it, and be part of it. And similarly in Alula, we've got the ancient history that sits there, and the work that's being done by the development company that's been set up more recently, and RCU, to retain and make available to a wider population and visitors from around the world of just how significant that historical context is, but without damaging the environment. And so everything they're doing there is focused very clearly on how they make sure that the impact of visitors is not going to have a detrimental impact on the heritage that exists, because that would be a complete failure. And it's great to see the role that's played by the client teams in all of this to focus on that heritage, and long may that continue.
But we are seeing a lot of this kind of development across the Kingdom. Here in the capital, DGD are doing a fantastic job restoring the old city. And we have the pleasure of working with them on 2 great projects, a World of Astoria and Elyza Hotel and Resorts in the heart of Diriyah Gate. And it's heartwarming to see that they are really taking pride in restoring the old city and allowing the architects and the interior designers the freedom to draw inspiration from the rich heritage and to pull it into these two properties. And we often get the question, how do you differentiate two properties in the same area and the same neighborhood when the inspiration is the same? And what DGDA are doing so skillfully is allowing the architects and the interior designers the freedom to interpret that as they want. We are lucky because the Wald of Astoria is in the city center, in the center facing the opera, so it has an urban setting to it, whereas the LXR is nestled in the Wadi. It's surrounded by hundreds of palm trees, which are decades old, hundreds of years old, and it's amazing to see how carefully they are mapping out each one of those palm trees to make sure that there is little damage, if any at all, to the existing landscape, and making sure they incorporate it into the projects. My colleague Özlem, Director of Architecture, is leading those two projects, and she's doing a fantastic job in making sure that we are showcasing the local heritage first and then our brand second.
I couldn't agree more, actually, because we are doing the design and build for the Daraya headquarters. And it's made up of two historic buildings that we're actually renovating. So the two buildings inspired, of course, from the same design, and they look different to each other because we had liberty of inputting some creative input into the design itself. And of course, I'll like to circle back on what you said, which is very interesting. But don't you think that sustainability is, when you implement it correctly, it helps itself, actually. Because when you consider when you want to build a country or a project in a country from within the country itself, that means bringing the craftsmen from the same country, having the experience of implementing, for example, the Najdi finishes or the Asiri finishes in other places. These very unique materials are unique to the location that we are building the project in. So you're actually using the experience of the natives themselves, the people within the location itself, and the material actually within the location itself. So even as contractors, it's when you take it seriously and you want to push the envelope a little bit, and you want to apply the actual sustainability principles, it becomes easier as you go. And I really expect down the line the application of sustainable principles will be easier in the kingdom.
Very insightful. I'm happy to have your thoughts about that. Michael, do you have any insights that you'd like to add in the culture and heritage?
Yeah, I mean, we've actually spoken earlier about a few things around that. Cultural heritage is critical, and we have to always maintain it, enhance it, and ensure that it is a part of the future developments and also a part of the attraction that brings people to these areas. We've also spoken a little bit about kind of reuse of buildings, which connects back to cultural heritage areas. I think it's important for us to remember that we don't want to put these type of significant elements of history in a glass box, so to speak, off to the side that is just designated, oh, we can see it, but we have to stay away. I think there is a lot of very useful and important work that's going on integrating these critical heritage projects into wider developments. I think there's been a lot of good work done so far on that, and I do believe that we are continuing down the right path to ensure that is the way.
Thank you. I think we can make the statement of, that the sustainable architecture that was probably not done as a framework, but the eco-friendly architecture approaches that were done earlier in Saudi Arabia made the buildings transferable. We can reuse, we can repurpose, it's transferred. And this is the main target with what we are trying to build from now to the future of one generation. In light of, the hospitality and the end user, and we're talking about, the guest, how they would like to be a traveler with purpose, probably as a statement for hospitality. How can we make the leverage of sustainability into impacting the guests experience and satisfaction. So we're bringing the property in being with local sourced material, done with, as if I take the net positive impact. Yes, it's there. We're bringing everything from, waste reduction, water conservation, as a guest satisfaction and impact, how we are there, how they are integrating with it, how are we creating a community around that.
Absolutely. So I mentioned earlier Travel with Purpose, which is Hilton's global ESG platform. And we are very pleased to share that in 2009, we launched Lightstay, which is Hilton's proprietary ESG platform. It allows us to track, manage, and monitor the main environmental and social metrics. So what that means is a hotel engineer at property can immediately understand at the touch of a button the hotel's performance, utilities, water, electricity, gas, the likes, and they can immediately manage it to flex it up and down. That data, because it is all tracked across 7,600 hotels globally, allows us to harness a lot of data at a regional level and at a global level. Mm-hmm. With the intent of not only managing it in terms of efficiency, but also to accurately report and transparently report to all our stakeholders, including guests. We have committed to our 2030 targets, which are very ambitious in the reduction of emissions, in the reduction of water and electricity consumption, contribution to landfills, and impact on social affairs. And Lightstay allows us to track that to make sure that we are working towards those 2020 goals. And it's surprising to see how interested guests are in the work we are doing in the ESG space. And all this allows us to document it, to report it accurately to our guests, and of course all of our stakeholders.
Interesting. In the study of the cost implications while considering sustainability, maybe Waleed, if you can, assist me on the insights in this topic. What approach would, with Saudi Icon or any contractor in the kingdom would take to leverage about this sustainability approach, the technologies, the material, taking note that, as we said, there's a cost implication. Okay, how can we convince the investors about this investment towards the return on this investment?
It's a two-part question, really. I think my co-panelist here just mentioned part of it when trying to convince or communicating with the developer or the owner of the project. As contractors, we have very little leverage in convincing anybody, really. but internally, or what we try to communicate to the developer, is that on the long run, this would be a good investment. If you study sustainable projects or LEED compliant projects, yes, true, there is an initial impact or an increase in the capital that you have to invest in the project. But down the line, when you're talking about a sustainable project, a more utility efficient project like the Hiltons, of course, you're mentioning, when you're talking about a project which requires less water to feed certain elements, when the machines themselves for a certain procedure or a rating which requires less electrical input and consumption. Of course, down the line, after 10, 20 years, and these projects are, of course, built to last more than 20 years, this becomes a good investment. This is for, of course, the developer and the owner. When it comes internally at Saudi Icon, the word is efficiency. We try to have a very efficient supply chain and construction network. Again, we are uniquely privileged and situated in the market. We do have multiple factories for metal works, joinery works, glass and aluminum works locally here in Saudi Arabia, which increases the local content, increases the local material, and most of all, most importantly, it's a spacious country, and distributing materials and resources within the country is a challenge in and of itself. But importing from outside the country becomes an additional step. So we try to be very compliant with local content procedures. Actually, we push the envelope. We're usually way above the governmental limit for local contents. And that helps us become more efficient in distributing via our networks and supply chains and logistical network. And overall, helps the sustainability of the project.
That's very insightful. Michael, well, since we've touched base on the efficiency, I believe your expertise in project efficiencies and setting the framework, we're out of time, but if you can give us a slight information about.
Yeah, we approach this from a number of different ways. At DAR, we're very, very lucky that we are a locally owned company, but we have international offices around the world, and they enable us to utilize talent without kind of the need to travel so much, especially nowadays with the technology that's available for all of us. So we do pride ourselves on the fact that we are able to, even from a design or a consultancy point of view, increase the efficiency and reduce the wastage in terms of time, travel, cost, and impact on the environment as well. From being one of the project directors at Expro, EXPRO, here in Saudi, the way that they approach it from a governmental and framework point of view is, again, to encourage all of the projects and all of the ministries to ensure that they are maintaining the vision of the 2030 and reaching the targets that have been set. There are ambitious targets that have been set within the region and within the country, but I believe that the vast majority of them are achievable, and we have, as a collective industry, shown so far that we are able to achieve those and at times even exceed them, and provide a better service than what was expected.
Thank you. So delighted to have you. Thank you so much for the panel, and thank you for everyone who attended. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.